You know, I really like getting the chance to review a game I've reviewed before, and I've been able to do that several times since starting to cover the Nintendo Switch. And here I am again, replaying and re-reviewing a game that I reviewed 3 years ago on the PlayStation Vita. A 3D anime-inspired, arena-based action game with loads of character customization, here is my review of Croixleur Sigma for the Nintendo Switch. The story of this game takes place in a queendom known as Irance, where nobles and knights are sent to a magic academy to train in the ways of the magic sword. And our story centers around 2 pairs of young women trained in the magic sword as they travel up a mystic tower, one pair for a school project and the other pair for investigation. Now, there are a lot of things I can say about the story here, but what I like to call this game's plot is that it's underutilized. If you look through the game modes, you're going to find mountains upon mountains of game lore, history, and backgrounds that are almost never actually used in the game itself. Most of the story cutscenes throughout the different story modes are about the character-to-character interactions of the 4 main characters rather than the actual world that this takes place in. Now, there are definitely hints here and there about what's going on in the outside world and what the characters are going to do once they get out, but the game ends before they even get out of the tower, leaving all of those hints and all of that lore just up in the air. When it comes to gameplay, Croixleur Sigma is an arena-based action game with some character customization thrown into the mix. Throughout all of its game modes, you're going to be wandering around a small arena fighting off enemies in real-time combat. First of all, there's nothing really extra or exclusive in this version of the game. It's the same Croixleur Sigma you can play on the PS4 and PS Vita. So if you were hoping for some extra content, it's pretty much the same. Now when it comes to game modes, you do have quite a bit to choose from. You've got story mode and extra mode for the 5 story campaigns, and then you've got score attack and survival modes for non-story gameplay and for local co-op. Most of the other modes are for settings and character customization, and that is something we should touch on real quick. As you're going through the different game modes, you're going to be collecting coins as currency, and you can use those coins to buy accessories you can put on the character. Not only do these accessories change the look of the character, like giving them bunny ears or angel wings, but they also have little buffs, like powering up certain attacks or increasing HP regeneration. So if you start having trouble in normal mode, you might go back and get some ridiculously looking party hat, not for the looks of it, but for its buff. And the cosmetic side of things goes further in what is called communication mode, or as I like to call it, photo mode. This lets you put each pair up on the screen, change the backgrounds, change their costume, and change their accessories, essentially letting them pose for you while you take screenshots. Now your main task when playing through this game is to clear all 5 campaign modes for story mode. This is pretty simple: clear character 1 story mode and you unlock character 2 story mode, and so on and so forth. The only trick is that one of the character story modes is hidden behind the true ending route of the first character story mode. So if you want to unlock Fran's story mode and the special 5th campaign known as the epilogue, you've got to go through the first campaign without dying and very quickly. Now let's get into combat, which is what you're going to be doing for most of the game. In every single game mode, you will be wandering around a small 3D arena with waves of enemies spawning that you're going to have to fight to gain access to the next floor. You fight them in fairly simplistic hack and slash battles. You got physical attacks that go in short combos, but you can also use MP to use skills in the middle of combos for much flashier and faster paced combos. Combined with the dash makes this a very hectic and very fast paced game, even though it's a pretty simple one. If you want to increase the pace even further, you can even go into options and turn on some of the assist features that will let the game auto-lock onto the nearest enemy for you, so you can just hit the attack buttons and you will see your character just fly across the screen on their own, zoning in on that enemy you want to attack. It's a really fun and very flashy looking system, and that's one of the things that really gives it some charm. But it also leads to a negative aspect of this game, and that's the feeling of repetition. You're going to go several stages in a row without story cutscenes, and most of the characters play extremely similar to one another, if not almost copy-paste the other characters' movesets. The only difference between the characters are skills, but even then, some of the skills are just character B has character A's airborne skill except on the ground. It really is a shame and quite odd because this repetitive game isn't a very long one. That of course brings us to content and length. By the time I'd gone through all 5 story campaigns and tested out many of the other game modes, I'd only been playing the game for about 4 hours. That's not a whole lot of time, especially considering that each of the campaign modes is actually only about 15 to 20 minutes long. A lot of that 4 hours was me grinding for special accessories and equipment I needed to be able to surpass certain bosses and get to the end of those campaigns. Now let's get into presentation, which has always been one of the game's strongest points. Just like on the Vita and every other platform this game is released on, there's a ton of detail in the character models, there aren't any jagged edges, it's really just a beautiful game to look at. And performance is mostly the same. I never saw the frame rate drop, it was super smooth all the way from the start to finish. The only problem I have with performance is the game crashing on me. This only happened during one of the campaigns, but it happened several times in a row. Whenever I would get to the end of Sarah's campaign before it would auto-save my progress and tell me that I'd completed it, the game would crash and I'd have to do it all over again. Now eventually it did work, so it's not impossible to finish Sarah's campaign, but it took quite a few tries to get there. And now let's get into battery life, which I was actually expecting to be a good bit. Croixleur Sigma has a battery range of 3 hours and 9 minutes on high settings, up to 4 hours and 9 minutes on low setting. So, as I expected, we did get quite a bit. Now, in conclusion, Croixleur Sigma is a fun and flashy anime that has finally returned to handhelds after 3 years. Now, the downside, the story does have a lot of lore that's really underutilized. The gameplay can get repetitive and there's not a whole lot of content available. But still, if you like flashy little anime action games, this might be worth picking up. Reviews to Go rates Croixleur Sigma for the Nintendo Switch a 7 out of 10. If you have any comments or questions, feel free to leave them below or head to the website at reviewstogo.com.